Hi there. This morning I was busy composing or editing a piece of music I'm doing, which is very much inspired by Mike Oldfield. But whereas Mike Oldfield, the zone um, is never altered in any way. With mine, there's sudden bursts of atonality, just to shake things up when you think everything's nice and meditative and peaceful. So it's not exactly Mike Oldfield, but it does sound particularly Mikey in the beginning and the various long passages of Mike Oldfield inspired music in D minor, very beautiful, with lots of like jazz chords coming in there and bursts of atonality, as I said. So I was doing this morning, but I could actually overhear a conversation between my my mad daughter and my partner, and they were talking about the problem of my daughter's drains. For which, of course, there are no resources to deal with drains, and they seem to be blocked rather hideously. And, and I was listening to this conversation in part, and I was listening to my piece of music in part, and it suddenly occurred to me that, well, potentially, this would drive me completely and utterly nuts in that I would completely freak out. Basically, at the juxtaposition of Drains and Mike Oldfield music, although Tubular Bells does have a sort of drain-like, symbol on the front of the album cover. So, but anyway, and I was sort of all set to completely freak out because I just couldn't handle the contradiction between beautiful music, which I was enjoying writing, and my daughter's drains. I mean, she doesn't live with us. She lives miles and miles away, which is another problem, of course, since no one can do anything. We haven't got any money to go up there or get the drains professionally fixed. As indeed we have drains problems in the house as well, in our house, and can't get them fixed either. So, all these things suddenly kind of erupt in one's brain. And if it wasn't for Tegretol and Prozac, I of course would completely freak out at this juncture. And I felt the sort of anger and frustration and humiliation and degradation and what's wrong with the entire universe and how hateful the whole universe actually is, welling up inside it sort of, for about 20 seconds. But then I suddenly just thought to myself, if one could possibly integrate whatever that word integrate means, if one could integrate the problem of drains and the beauty of music, of sort of integrate them together, or perhaps create drains music in the middle of this rather beautiful music, which would be a modernist response, of course. Which one would express one's frustration with drains in the middle of a sort of Steve Reich and Mike Oldfield inspired Jean-Michel Jarre, hypnotic, beautiful music. But in my own mind, I have to sort of integrate these two situations, I suppose, or polarities, I suppose, because drains on one hand, which are filthy, dirty things, and beautiful music, which is clean and tidy and nice, and hypnotic and meditative and new agey and all that kind of stuff. So you've got drains, which have always been with us. Drains, infected, of course, and killed members of the royal family in Britain because the drains in Buckingham Palace were in bad array, and they were lethal. I mean, they were a source of infection, which actually killed Prince Albert because he got typhus as a result of the bad drains of Buckingham Palace. So that's kind of one polarity, and then the other polarity is this beautiful new age escapist music. And somehow I've got to integrate these two this morning without freaking out. And I was thinking, that basically the drains pertain to the mode of preservation, because one has to preserve drains and repair drains and maintain drains in order to be able to live in a house, in order to be able to make music, right? Because you can't make music in drains which, with a stinky and don't work properly and perhaps even are dangerous. So that's the kind of preserving side of things, the big P. And the big creative, big C, obviously, is the creation of music. And I suddenly thought to myself, well, ultimately the drains are going to have to be repaired and be maintained and be sorted out, but the music has to be created now, today, whilst I'm in the zone, whilst I'm in the mood, and ultimately, I think, in a way, beauty has to win over ugliness. Let us say the drains are necessary but ugly, and the music is perhaps unnecessary, but beautiful. So we have the unnecessary and the beautiful, and we have the necessary drains and the ugliness and smelliness and horribleness of drains, of septic tanks, and poo going down pipes and stuff like that. But ultimately, just today, just this morning, just now, I'm focused on the beautiful and the unnecessary, which is my music creation. And then perhaps when I'm finished with my music creation, I will then have to attend or think about the ugliness and the necessity of drains. Drains for my daughter who lives miles away, and we haven't got any money to deal with the drains in any case. So perhaps something will be sorted out, or perhaps something will not be sorted out. So overall, just now, at this present moment, the beautiful and the unnecessary take precedence over the ugly and the necessary. And then it suddenly occurred to me that this was that if I couldn't cope with this and I just freaked out and just raved and ranted, this would be the destructive mode. Self-destructive mode, self-hatred, self-loathing, regret for the past, and all that kind of stuff. All that stuff wells up. So you have here preserving, creating, and the big D, which is the big destructive, self-destructive mode that one gets in, that the tablets protect me from my own destructive anger, I suppose, at having to deal with the beautiful unnecessary on one hand and the necessary and the ugly on the other. But then you see, when you look at it, music is unnecessary and drains are necessary. Then from a practical point of view, this worldly point of view, the drains do actually come first before music. Because I mean, the music is escapist. The music is there because of ugly drains, which are sort of necessary. And we see it in culture. I mean, people escape from COVID-19 into fantasy and into music to escape from reality. And people have made music for thousands and thousands of years in order to escape from smelly drains and the necessity of life. And there's no need for music at all. It's unnecessary, but it is beautiful and it is transformative and it is escapist. But then I was thinking, that really, when we talk about the transcendental, the transcendental actually exists beyond destructive, creative, preserving, and even beyond the integration of destructive, preserving, and creative powers. Although I think that the integration with the big I is possibly a step towards the transcendental, which is the big T. So you have to get to the big T via the big I, which is the integration. So rather than freaking out over smelly drains on one hand and wanting to finish music on the other, I have to integrate these two polarities in order to transform myself into a more transcendental state. And the point is that emotions recollected in tranquility. If I analyze this whole situation, this whole cross is basically forms my analysis of this current situation. So here we're preserving drains on one hand, we're creating music on the other. We're trying not to go into destructive, self-harming, self-hatred on the other hand. We're trying to integrate all these two things, but I mean, I can't say I'm not angry with the situation because I am, because it's just sort of, well, I won't go into the wheres and whyfores why I'm angry, but I am angry. So you've got this anger, you've got this need to sort out drains, you've got this desire to create music, you've got to integrate these three things and create integration, which is a sort of like a fourth way, as it were. And from this fourth way, you can approach the transcendental, which, as I said, is quite above the big C, the big P, and the big D. And yet, the transcendental is not creative. It's not escapism. It's not like music. It's very necessary to transcend all this, the worlds of the demiurge. But music is unnecessary, even though it's beautiful. So the big T, the big transcendental, is necessary in order to liberate our souls from the worlds of the demiurge. And it is beautiful, so it's necessary and beautiful, whereas music is unnecessary and beautiful. And ultimately, if the drains need attending to, that are the necessary and ugly, then they'll have to be attended to in some shape or form or in some way. And the resources will have to be found to deal with the drains, rather than trying to escape into the music world where drains don't feature. So integrating all the points of one's personality perhaps leads to a transcendental state or a pre-transcendental state. And if you go into the integrated mind rather than the destructive mind, which is another option, then you are going into a pre-transcendental state from which the transcendental may arise. But of course, the trick is to do it without being on Prozac and Tegretol. But on the other hand, perhaps there's no trick to it, because perhaps, due to genetics, my brain isn't really capable of dealing with the juxtaposition of ugly, necessary drains and unnecessary, beautiful music on the other hand. I just don't have the neurochemistry to deal with it, so I have to have some help from the pharmaceutical companies in order to reach an integrated state of mind, or a pre-transcendental state of mind. And this being so, I shouldn't be too hard on myself and beat myself up for having to be on pharmaceutical tablets which help me to a pre-transcendental state. It's just something that my brain chemistry has to have, because I'm not going to get there through existential or spiritual exercises. Well, at least I'm not. Well, I could get there, but every time I go up on the spiritual ladder, of course, my genetics, my predisposition to freak out knocks me down the ladder again. So the pharmaceuticals are actually helping in a way to keep me going up on the ladder, spiritual ladder. And perhaps one day, when I have reached some kind of existential skill, in dealing with the problems of life and the beauties of life, then I won't need the pharmaceuticals anymore, because I'll be sufficiently up the spiritual ladder to recognize the illusion of both music and drains, in fact. For example, so who knows? But that's sort of in the future, really. And the future is a mystery, and the past is history, as they say. Sorry to sort of quote that kind of new age sort of psychobabble, but it's sort of true, really. I mean, a bit generalised, but it has a truism attached to it. So the secret of Gnosticism, I think, lies in being able to transcend the destructive, preserving, and creative sides, the necessary and the unnecessary, the freaking out and the calming side of oneself, and integrating all these sort of polarities, if you like, into a pre-transcendental state from which the transcendental will arise. Well, that's the theory anyway.